For more on this, we're now joined by Manny De Freitas from the DA, and he is the Shadow Minister for Tourism in Parliament, and he joins us for more on this conversation. Manny, thank you so much for joining us this evening on SABC News. Perhaps let's start off with maybe getting your reaction when it comes to the latest, the incidents we've seen in the Northwest. This is quite concerning.
It is quite concerning, and the problem goes a lot deeper than just this incident. We are getting more and more incidences where tourists are involved in criminal incidences. And this has an impact on tourism from countries where this news then is repeated in their news outlets and discourages people from coming to South Africa. Now, tourism is an important economic generator because it creates many jobs and sustains many people. And when you have less tourists coming in because they're afraid because of crime, it has a great impact. The tourism sector, for example, is bigger than mining, for example, in South Africa at the moment. And so it talks a lot deeper into the lack of crime prevention, the lack of what police should be doing, and although it's commendable that, for example, Sun City and other tourist attractions are doing the best they can by advising tourists to travel certain routes and so forth, they shouldn't be doing that. We should have all our routes safe enough to travel, whether you're a South African tourist or an overseas tourist. And it's most concerning because I understand that on this particular incident, there were a variety of people from different countries, European countries, on that bus, which means this news has by now been on their news channels, and people who may well have booked for Christmas holidays in South Africa may well have changed their minds and not come in. And the impact on our job creation and developing our tourism is very impactful. So it's a lot deeper because the police should be doing this. Police should be making sure that all routes are safe, that people should feel safe at all times. And to say that, the Northwest Province, that's great that they're going to be launching a festive season campaign, but there should be a campaign 365 days of the year because the impact is huge. And only recently, for example, international companies like Google Earth and Waze, which are GPS companies, are now putting warnings for tourists to avoid certain routes. Now, that's very telling. It's telling because it's saying that government isn't doing what it should be doing. And you've now got a situation where tourists have got to be careful to come to South Africa.
And Manny, it also just shows you that, these attacks, they've become so brazen, and it's quite clear that they are really targeting tourists in this country.
They're targeting tourists, and especially if the criminals know that they're tourists from abroad. Those tourists are carrying foreign currency, which are much stronger than ours. And so that is an attraction for criminals. And so, we have to do something about this. I have already written to the Minister of Tourism to ask her what is she doing and talking to her counterpart, her police counterpart, to actually have a plan to make sure that tourists are safe wherever they are and wherever they are in the country. Because I can tell you that the numbers are going to decrease if we continue with this kind of criminal activity. And we have to do something. We have to look after our tourists, because what we find is, because South Africa is such an easy sell, people love coming to South Africa. We have perfect weather, great, everything about South Africa is so attractive, but people won't come if they're not feeling safe. And that is the big concern. And my concern as well is that those people involved in, tourism is not just tourism, it's accommodation, it's all sorts of other subsectors that go with it, are affected. And it's South Africans that are employed in these sectors that are going to be affected and may well even lose their jobs because there aren't enough tourists coming in to sustain them.
Let's talk about the dangers
concerning.
of this matter, especially how damaging it is to the tourism industry. I mean, you've already mentioned that. I'm sure it's already on the news in those various European countries, and what it does to the tourism sector, which is still in recovery mode following COVID-19. I mean, I'm sure that during a time where South Africa could be making a lot of money during the summer period and the December holidays, and to hear of some of these problems we are facing in the country with criminals and targeting tourists, surely that this is really damaging.
It's damaging, and it should be a priority, especially when we're talking about European tourists. And the reason is because that's our biggest market. That's our biggest attraction, because South Africa is an easy sell. People love coming to South Africa. The weather's great. People are amazing. We have great scenery. Everything's great about South Africa. But the one thing that is failing us is allowing brazen criminality to take place without any consequence. And so we have to deal with this, because the impact is huge. These Europeans that are on that bus will go back to those countries, and unfortunately it's more than one or two countries. I believe it's countries that are big markets for us, France, Germany, etc. And they're going to go back, and so people who would have wanted to come to South Africa will hesitate and then choose other markets that are competing with us. We already have a disadvantage in that we are geographically far away. And so that's the only kind of negative, if you like, for Europeans to come. But they're in the same time line, so they don't get a jet lag or anything like that. And for them to feel like to come to South Africa, it may mean that I may be hurt, I may be in a criminal incident, I'm in a foreign country. That's going to be a deterrent. And so government is not taking this seriously.
Yeah.
And I'm going to keep on pushing that the minister and her colleagues do something about this, because the impact is a domino effect on not just crime, but all the other impacts economically and so forth.
Manny, what should the tourism minister do, the police minister do, to ensure that, the tourists who come into this country are safe at all times?
It's really quite straightforward. Make sure that we have enough police, men and women, where they should be, properly trained, vigilant, making sure that the roads are lit. So that involves the Minister of Transport, making sure that dark roads have street lighting, because criminals like the dark. And so it's not. That's what I've urged the Minister of Tourism to do, is to talk to all her counterparts and say, what can we do collectively to make sure that this changes? We already have a situation where tourists are actively discouraged from going into CBDs of our main metros. That shouldn't be the case, because internationally, when you travel, you do go to the big CBDs and you do tour and travel those cities. And it's very sad that tourists can't go to the CBD of Johannesburg or Tshwane, etc. Because we have so much to offer. And so the ministers all the ministers have to take this very, very seriously, because the impact will start happening. And it's happening. There are too many frequent criminal incidences happening already, when in the past you would hear it very occasionally. It's now happening too often. And we have to do something. It's most concerning.
All right, then, Manny, thank you so much for that conversation and your contribution on the show. That is Manny De Freitas, DA Shadow Minister of Tourism.